Live from Sin City, it's the Sox and Pinstripes Podcast. And now, here's the star of the show, Giant Dr. Griffin!
This is Diet Dr. Griffin back with another episode of the Sox and Pinstripes Podcast. Shane's with us today. How you doing, Shane?
Poppy. I'm
Well,
just
Big
going
Poppy
back
was
to
up.
back on my chants these last 2 weeks. So.
Last 3 weeks, probably. You've been doing the Freddie chants for a while now.
Oh yeah, that's right. I had 2 weeks of Freddie, 1 week of Poppy since we're doing the comeback this week.
Yes, and we're going to get to the comeback in a second, but there is something that I just could not ignore this week that happened. So at some of the GM meetings that are going on in baseball right now, Scott Boras, the mega agent who has a number of the high-profile free agents out there, including Juan Soto and Corbin Burns, he did his annual list of puns. So he'll go to do his press conference, and he has puns set up for all of his players. And we got to go through these.
He's got them on deck too, so he's like ready to go.
Oh, he does this every single year, and they're so funny and out there that you got to just hear us go through them. So the first one we got is Corbin Burns. And as he said, essentially, he continues to be a Corbin copy of his previous seasons. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I kind of like that one. As far as like, there's going to be some other ones that are really cringe, but that one's like, that's not too bad. So,
yeah. All right. So up to Juan Soto now. And he's talking about, in the context, he's talking about the executives and the owners and stuff. They're called upon to be championship magicians. Behind every great magician is the magic wand.
that one doesn't make. Sorry, I'm recovering from respiratory infection, so that one does not make any sense to me. So
no magic wand.
I mean, I get there's supposed to be a magic one musician, and it's wand. Wand is what he's
like a magician
on.
carrying a magic wand. WAND.
Oh, wand. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's even worse than I thought. So.
All right, now we're talking about Alex Bregman. He's provided the Astros with that infusion of championship blood. Everything about him is AB positive.
Love it. Never change.
that one's actually pretty good.
Yeah, just a little bit of science in there. So
a little bit of name play there. AB positive.
Yeah, that's probably his best one. His least weird one. So
yeah. So we got Pete Alonso up next. There has been a lot of talk about this being a bear market for first basemen, but for Pete's sake, it's the polar opposite.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's Pete's sake, there's bear market, and polar opposite. I mean, that's like a threefer on that
and
one.
Of course, Alonso's nickname is the polar bear too. So.
Oh yeah. So he got both of them. He managed to fit in bear market, polar opposite, and for Pete's sake. So.
I joked about one time someone made a comment about when Pete Alonso got hit by a pitch, and I was on Facebook, and I said, for Pete's sake, he's something. And I didn't even realize I made the Pete's sake joke. I just did the Pete's sake thing because I didn't want to say something else. And then I realized, he got hit in the face. That was kind of funny. Humor there. The last one I got is Blake Snell. Now, last year, Boras went with a mock Snell F1 joke. And this year, he says, the Snelling salts have created a lot of whiffs. The market has definitely awakened to Blake Snell.
Yeah, that one is, so I get a lot of swing and miss in his pitching, but then it's like a reference to bath salts in a weird way.
No. Smelling salts, you put smelling salts to wake somebody up when they're unconscious.
Okay.
So you get the whiffs of the smells, and then you wake up from the smelling salts.
And then that Blake is there for the taking. So.
Yeah. Not good when you have to explain the jokes. It means it didn't go over very well.
Hey, I mean, we'll
So,
see what is a client's kit. You know, it all depends on what money they pull. So,
yeah. Yeah, we'll find out about that sometime next year.
oh yeah, but probably during spring training. So,
Yeah. Anywho, let's get to the comeback because there is a lot to unpack with that special. Now,
oh man, 2 years, yeah, so good,
yeah,
so
I
good.
mean, it was the comeback is a 3 episode special on Netflix, about an hour in each episode.
If
About
you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor and watch it. So,
yeah, it's a good history lesson about the Red Sox Yankees rivalry. About basically it started in 2002, pretty much when Theo Epstein was hired. That's kind of where the whole story began.
yeah.
And there have been
I didn't
some.
realize that he was only 28 when he got the job too.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was.
So
He was
I forgot he moved on from Nomar. Like he did a lot of crazy stuff. So
yeah, he was a bold general manager for sure.
oh,
And so the story starts with him, and he starts building the 2003 Red Sox roster. Starts bringing in guys like David Ortiz, starts bringing in Big Poppy. They're doing a lot of the Moneyball stuff. They made it a point to accent like the career on base percentage for a lot of these players.
oh yeah, and it
They
was
even brought in Jeremy Giambi.
yeah, yeah. And then I love the you have the juxtaposition between the unabashedly unashamed old school manager who's like, well, I'm just always fired straight from the gut. And then, you know, the new guys who are like, well, you know, there's something to this baseball analytics in your gut, you know, when your gut tells you to roll out Pedro Martinez, you know, for 2 more innings after you should have taken him out, then
We'll get there. We'll get there, Shane. We'll get there, Shane. So, for those who don't know and haven't seen Moneyball, there was the famous scene when Billy Beane at the end of the movie was meeting with the owner of the Red Sox, John Henry.
yeah,
And, they wanted to hire him. And
yeah, yeah,
Billy
yeah,
Beane turned down the job.
yeah.
But he basically kind of said, Theo was kind of the guy to go to. He was the smartest guy there. So the Red Sox hired Theo and gave him the shot. And
So
Theo,
I guess if you really wanted to watch the whole series, it would go Moneyball and then this series.
yeah, yeah, because it's really a lot of the continuation of the same stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's like literally like what is that from 2000 to 2004? It's like 4 years of baseball and 5 hours of television.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Moneyball kind of was the 2000 and 2001 or 2002 season that it took place in.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we don't even actually get to the comeback itself until like see the middle of the third episode. It's literally that long. You have to build up because so much happened. And 2003 was
Yeah.
2003 was a crazy year in and of itself. What ended up happening was the Red Sox ended up facing the Yankees in the playoffs that year, and they lost in Game 7, as you mentioned, because they left Pedro Martinez out too long, and he gave up the lead.
And tensions were high too. I mean, I kind of miss that kind of baseball where they would just tag people just to keep them honest. You know, pitcher just go out and peg someone and just be like, "Well, don't stand so close to the plate next time."
Yeah, nowadays everybody just gets hit on the wrist because they're going too close. They've changed how they want to use the arm angles and the launch angles and everything on the bats. Now they're
Yeah,
getting their wrists broken all the time because of stuff like that.
yeah. I
And
didn't
I
realize
get
how
it.
like mean of an old pitcher Pedro was too. That was a nice like
Oh yeah.
replay. Like that guy was just old school, like ride or die for the boys. So
I loved how I love how much we got of Pedro in this series because he was epitomized the leader of that team.
oh yeah, absolutely.
He was the gunslinger, and those weren't even like his best years, quite frankly. Like they had
Oh
some
yeah.
epic playoff matchups between the Red Sox and the Yankees and like 99 and 2000. There were
Hmm.
some great years with Pedro and going up against them.
Yeah.
And I love how like they got Roger Clemens to be there
Yeah.
too, because he was a guy who played on both sides of the rivalry.
Yeah. Like literally, like was
He
he
was
on
with the
the
Red
Red?
Sox in '86.
Okay, that's right. He
He,
wasn't though in '03, right?
no, he was with the
Yeah.
Yankees in '03. He was
Yeah,
with
that's
the
right.
Yankees in that during that period.
Yeah, because he was like, yeah, the Red Sox let me go for the twilight of my career, and it was a long twilight.
Yeah, because they let him go in like 95 and then
Yeah.
95, 96, I think. And then he goes and wins the Cy Young Award for 2 straight years in Toronto. He doesn't even
Yep.
go to the Yankees. He goes to Toronto first, dominates up there, and then goes to the Yankees.
Yeah. Well, and then he pitched until like what 2006, something like that.
Yeah, he went to the Astros for a while after the Yankees. I think he pitched in the World Series to the Astros at one point. Then I think he came back to the Yankees during the famous oh my goodness gracious moment. George
Oh yeah.
Roger Clemens is in the box with George Steinbrenner and he's coming back to play for the Yankees.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really loved about the comeback was how many of the Red Sox players they got, even
Oh yeah.
guys that kind of came out of the even some of the unknown or lesser known guys. They got Bill Miller to be there. They got Trot Nixon. They got Doug Mirabelli to be there.
Oh yeah. Dude,
I think,
Trot Nixon tried to murder someone in the benches clearing fight.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
That
like
guy
they
was gonna
went,
rip that guy's head off.
yeah, and so they went through a lot of the games, and even like in 2003, I love how they even got Grady Little, and I'll give Grady Little credit for doing this because
Yeah.
this did not
Oh, he
paint.
was still bitter about it. He was still bitter about it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they made it seem like he was the only guy who didn't realize that Pedro was running out of fumes.
Yeah.
I can understand why Nomar didn't want to be in this show because they played a lot of heat on him too.
Yeah. Well, his defense was pretty sloppy, and problem being is that they kind of just all played pretty sloppy defense in 2003.
Yeah,
And
the
when
Red Sox were
your
not a good.
shortstop is the yeah, and I mean, they played terrible defense, and when your shortstop is the ringleader of that, there's no really room for improvement. And I can understand Nomar's, frustration and the chip on his shoulder in 2004 because up until that point in time, I mean, he was like Red Sox baseball for the longest time.
Yeah,
So
he was no Noma was a big
no,
thing with the
no,
AA.
ma.
Yeah, he was a Boston guy, and he was such a good shortstop. People forget how good he was. I mean,
Oh
even
yeah,
even as
absolutely.
bad as like his career went, and he really struggled after being traded to the Cubs. And I think he was only an All-Star one more time. He played a lot of his years in LA after that with the Dodgers. And even
Yeah.
now he's a big part of the Dodgers broadcast and stuff. Actually, he
Oh
does
well, good for him.
post
Yeah.
game show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw him when I was in LA. They were doing some recordings, at the game, and they had the crew up there, and I saw Nomar up there. I was like, that's cool. But
Yeah, that
he
was a
he
neat.
ended his career with a 313 batting average, even after all of the downward stuff. He still hit, and that was a big thing. 2004 comes along, and Tito Francona is hired to be the manager of the Red Sox, and the Red Sox are going after A-Rod. They're going guns a-blazing here. They're having secret, meetings at 2 in the
Oh,
morning.
and I didn't realize how close he came. I didn't realize how close he came to actually being a Red Sox, or even the fact that he wanted to be a Red Sox. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he wanted to be the Red Sox. The problem was is that they wanted to adjust his money on the contract, and the players union, of course, would never allow that. And so
Yeah.
then Aaron Boone, the current manager of the Yankees, who got his club option accepted somehow, we could talk about that on another day. Aaron Boone, the guy who hit the home run to win the 2003 ALCS for the Yankees, he tears his
Yeah.
ACL playing basketball. And then the Yankees come in and they're like, we're getting A-Rod and we're putting him in at third base.
Which was kind of a big deal too, because metrics wise, he was a better shortstop than the captain was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
At that time for sure, A-Rod was the
yeah.
best in the game at the position.
And so the fact that, I mean, there was a little, I mean, he made it clear early that he just wanted to win and would play, whatever position. But if you're Derek Jeter at that point in time, I mean, you're sweating a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah. But you're also the captain, so
yeah, I mean, you don't have anything to worry about, but also like don't mess it up because there's this guy playing third who could just move over at any point in time. So
yeah, just saying. So then the Red Sox, well, actually the Red Sox went out and got Kurt Schilling first. This was
yeah.
they got back over Thanksgiving, and they told a funny little story about getting sick at one of the. I think Jed Hoyer. I think he got sick at Schilling's house on the Thanksgiving.
Oh, he said he got the worst food poisoning he's ever had in his entire life
Yeah,
from the chilling turkey, but he couldn't leave because they didn't get a deal done.
yeah. And of course, Tito Francona was Schilling's manager in Philadelphia before that. So
Yeah.
they knew each other there. And so then you got the 2004 situation coming along, and Kevin Millar is out there, and Kevin Millar was one of the best parts of this documentary.
Yeah, dude.
It was a long time to get to him, but
character.
he was
Yeah.
amazing.
Did they get did Roger Clemens? Did they get the Roger
Yeah,
Clemens
I
interview?
think Roger Clemens talked during
Like,
it.
hey, Roger, kudos to you for showing up. I think he's the only Yankee they got,
Well,
other than
they
the
got
managers and the GM. So
they got Gary Sheffield too. Gary Sheffield
okay, that's great.
brought
Yeah.
on. Johnny Damon technically played for both teams.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Johnny Damon was a Scott Boras guy, and I should have realized that as a youngster that you
Yeah.
know 'cause Johnny Damon made a big thing about how he said he would never play for the Yankees, and literally within a year he was playing for the Yankees and shaved his beard and long hair to
Yeah.
play for them.
Yeah, that's what I love about the whole documentary is you just see that the Sox are like a couple of guys from Boston having a good time, and the Yankees are just this like buttoned up professional team. And comparatively, that Sox team for those 2 years is like a bunch of guys off the street just partying and playing baseball.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, you had Cowboy up the first year, and then Johnny Damon referring to the team as the idiots.
yeah, so and they all shaved their heads too for the
Yeah. That was
ALCS.
2003, but I remember I
Yeah,
used to
2003.
have a T-shirt of Johnny Damon on the front of it. It said the idiots believed and you should too. And then when Johnny Damon went to the Yankees, that shirt pretty much disappeared.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't burn it, but I may have thrown it out because of how disgusted I was with that.
Well, you should have kept it because now you're a Yankees apologist. So
Well, I was a much different person back then.
clearly,
That was before I met Taylor and was seduced by the dark side of baseball, even though the Yankees haven't won a championship in 15 years and the Red Sox have won two since the Yankees have won their last one.
yeah. Well, the Yankees don't deserve to win one. That's why. So anyway, I digress.
So they spent a lot of time going over, I forget what the date of it was, but there was a game where there was a massive brawl between the Red Sox and the Yankees. And it was on a game where they weren't even supposed to play it because of inclement weather. But the Red Sox were kind of floundering around 500. And they were like, we're playing this effing game.
Oh yeah, and that was after they had the two managers had officially called it.
Yeah.
And then Tito gets back to the dugout, and everyone's like, "No, we're
And
playing this game." Yeah.
Veritek, who apparently doesn't say a whole lot, he's like the silent Bob of the crew. Veritek's like, we're playing this game. And they're like, when Veritek talks, we're listening. So like they decided to play the game. And then that's the game when A-Rod and Veritek have the famous scuffle. Manny gets thrown the high pitch that's not even close to his head, but he freaks out about it. I think Roger Clemens was throwing that one there.
Yeah.
And you have the whole incident where Don Zimmer, former manager of the Red Sox, now the bench coach for the Yankees, he's charging Pedro Martinez like a bull, and Pedro olays him, and he falls to the.
Yeah, yeah, and he acts like the funny part about that is he acts like he got hit in the face, and literally he swung at Pedro like open-handed B slap
Yeah,
Pedro with his left hand, and then Pedro just lets him fall to the ground, and he acts like Pedro assaulted him. I'm like,
I
dude,
know, and
what?
that was a big thing. Everybody hated Pedro when he did that, but I'm like,
He didn't do anything. He just backed up. The old guy fell down.
yeah, he just like took his head and just kind of moved him out of the way, and like Zimmer should have known better than to do that, to charge somebody in a fight.
He's going after a he's going after a 31-year-old. I forget how old he was, but whatever, in shape, pitcher.
Yeah,
And some like 76-year-old guy who's like a foot shorter than he is trying to
yeah.
go after him.
So that game they made that game like to be the turning point of things, even though like they made a point of mentioning, oh, they still kind of floundered for a week or two after that.
Yeah, yep.
So they made the big trade in the deadline to send Nomar to Chicago, and they ended up getting I think there was like a three-way trade with Minnesota involved there because they got Doug
Yep.
Minkiewicz, who is a Gold Glove first baseman, and they got Orlando Cabrera to play shortstop, and the team started to gel.
Yeah.
But then they got to the playoffs, and they fell down 3-0 to the Yankees in the ALCS. And then in comes
Yes.
Dave Roberts, the current manager of the Dodgers, and he steals a base.
Dave.
He steals a base, and then the Red Sox tie the game. And they're going up against Mariano Rivera, the best closer in history of baseball. Going up against him, they tie the game. They go on to win the game, and then they win the next three.
What's his name? Is like better beat us today because you're not going to want to play
Millar
anymore. Better sweep us today.
Millar kept saying, "You better beat us today." He kept saying that over and
Yeah,
over.
better beat. Yeah, I
And
forgot
so
that Kurt Schilling. Oh yeah, okay, you're going to get to this.
Kurt
Obviously.
Schilling had, of course, the bloody
Yeah.
sock game too.
Yeah, just pitched with no ankle on his throwing foot.
Oh, everybody thought he was faking that too. Everybody thought he was faking that.
Now, you look at the pictures in that documentary, and that's a deep fake if it's a fake. So.
And he was never really the same after that.
Yeah, because
He struggled. He was okay with the Red Sox for a couple more years, but he was basically out of the game within like 2-3 years.
Yeah, that's because he literally messed his foot up so bad. I mean, even the like Theo and or Theo and the GM and all those guys were like, "Hey, man, are you like sure you want to do this?" Because they knew like that's going to mess his foot up permanently, and it did, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, what a legend, dude!
Legend
Pitching,
as a player, but man, they hate Schilling now for a number of different reasons.
Yeah, but I mean, what a legend for that game, though. So
yeah, yeah. So they went through, and then they went on to win the World Series. They swept the World Series after after basically going 4 straight against the Yankees. They destroyed the Cardinals. It wasn't even close, and they brought home the championship to Boston for the first time in 86 years, and it was a big, big deal. They kept saying the term team of destiny, and it ended up that was a legit team of destiny.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I totally cried when they were panning across the graveyards and people had hung the pennants on like their grandfathers and great grandfathers who never got to see the team win.
Yeah,
that was like such a beautiful thing in the end of the movie.
I remember there being a Budweiser commercial that was going on during the World Series, and it had basically a father and a son kind of watching all of the moments together of watching the games.
Yeah.
I got really like teared up, like the moments of the Red Sox past where they were like close, but they didn't make it.
Yeah.
And finally see that, because that resonated with me, because my grandfather, he was born in 1920, so he never got to see a championship until, last couple of years of his life. And that that hit home. But now it's like one thing they didn't really get into a whole lot was the aftermath of it. They kind of talked about Tim Wakefield not being around anymore because he passed away. He and his wife passed away, I think, last year.
Yeah.
But the one thing the documentary didn't really cover a whole lot of was the aftermath of, like, I'm talking like a few years after,
Yeah.
because the evolution of Red Sox fans changed completely in the next 5 to 10 years after that. And I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but the Red Sox
I'm
fans,
ready for it
the
already.
Red Sox fans became entitled little shit. And I'm
Oh,
gonna bleep that
I
out.
didn't know we were gonna be able to curse on this episode. I
I'm
would have
bleeping
been
it out.
like,
I'm bleeping it out.
I was in there from the start. I mean, I was gonna throw out a disclaimer after watching the documentary, like pardon myself for a couple.
Yeah,
So.
and there is a lot of language in the documentary, a lot of F-bombs, even from Theo of all people. Like
Yeah, dude, everyone. I mean, it's Boston to the max. So.
but Theo was from Boston, so
Yeah.
that was a big thing. But I think a lot of what drove the Red Sox fans and the Boston fans, honestly, it wasn't just that the Red Sox got good during this time. This was also the same time when they had Brady.
Yeah, they were winning championships, right? I mean, weren't Bruins good around that time too? I
There
think.
there's a famous ESPN article, ESPN cover, excuse me, where it had a guy's hand and it had each of the four major Boston franchises had a ring from each of them on each finger,
Oh,
and it
geez.
said "Welcome to Boston, loser." And I'll have to find the image and send it to you, but
Yeah,
it
please
was
send
a
it to me.
big thing. And when all this was going on, Brady had already won 2 championships and won a third championship in 2004. So
Yeah.
the dominant era, then the Red Sox won another championship in 2007.
Yeah.
And 2007 was a year where nearly every single team in Boston, I think, won a championship, except for the Patriots. That was like the one team that didn't win that year.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because
I think
then the Blackhawks had their magic. Just hockey really quick, because then the Blackhawks had their magical run in like '09 or whatever it was. So
Yeah, and the whole thing is that the Red Sox fans they got really full of themselves because of just all the winning and stuff. I mean, they
yeah,
fired Terry Francona, the guy who brought them 2 championships.
yeah,
They fired him 8 seasons in. He
yeah,
managed the Cleveland Guardians for longer than he managed the Boston Red Sox, which is
yeah,
crazy when you think about it. The guy who was there and got you 2 championships in 4 years, and he's not even there a decade. They fired him outright.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they kept firing people and bringing in new GMs and everything. Like they fired
yeah,
Francona to bring in Bobby Valentine. They go into last place. They fire Bobby Valentine, and then they bring in, I think, John Farrell, and they win a championship in 2013. But then a few years later, they fire him, and they bring in Alex Cora, and then they win a championship. And they go through like multiple GMs during this process because Epstein, he walks away and decides to go to the Chicago Cubs and
yeah,
brings them their championship after building their dynasty up. I mean, you could do a whole documentary about Theo in Chicago, quite frankly.
yeah. And I love honestly the success that kid's had, and all he wanted to do was just be in baseball. You gotta love like his story. So
I wonder what his next move is going to be because he has been out of the game for a number of years now.
I mean, he did it. He took 2 teams. Hey, Theo, if you're listening right now, come to Seattle. We'd love you here. Jerry's contract's up. Jerry's contract's up next year. Don't give him an excuse to get hired back.
That would be interesting. I
It would
don't
be
know
a
what,
good fit too. He wants to play Moneyball, and John Stanton doesn't want to spend anything. So
I'd be very curious to see what Theo does next.
yeah,
But
Seattle's waiting for you, Theo. Seattle's waiting for you.
the whole culture of like the Red Sox management and stuff, they got super greedy too. They just kept firing people left and right. And you got to the point where Dave Dombrowski was brought in, and he was the general manager who basically was there in 2018. He was fired less than a year after winning the championship.
Yeah, that's pretty
Can you
crazy.
imagine that? Like Dombrowski is the guy right now who's, running the Phillies. And I couldn't see Philadelphia firing a guy a year after. If Philly wins a championship, they're not going to fire Dombrowski like 10 months later. But that's what they did in Boston because that's how much the culture had changed there.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point now where you have a dozen GMs when they got rid of Bloom last year. They got a dozen GMs who won't even accept like invitations to do an interview with the team.
Yeah, because they're just like, well, I'll just be there for a year, and if they don't win, then they're just gonna fire me. So
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's
and a
what's
year is
happening.
not enough time to create a winning team. I mean, the fact that Theo got it done in 2 years is crazy. Just for contrast, John Stanton gave his GM for the Mariners 10 years and still hasn't got it done. So
Yeah, it's just Boston has just became a different place. They became the New York Yankees by trying to beat the New York Yankees. The old saying, "The road to hell was paved with men who had good intentions."
yeah,
And that's sort of what happened there.
yeah,
And you wonder, part of the reason why I don't really hate the Yankees as much as I used to is because the Yankees, quite frankly, aren't the Yankees of old. When George Steinbrenner passed away, like that era died. And Hal is just an owner who is like any other owner that really just wants to make money and have a decent payroll, but he's not George Steinbrenner who will just sacrifice everything to win.
yeah,
Now you've got the real evil empire in Los Angeles with the Dodgers because they are doing the things that the Yankees used to do 25 years ago when George Steinbrenner was running the place.
yeah, yeah.
That's the real evil empire. And we can talk about them more next week because Roki Sasaki has decided to come out 2 years early. And everybody is saying that the Dodgers are going to sign this kid who, on a normal free agent situation, will be worth $200 million. And the Dodgers are going to get him for international slot money, which is like $5 to $7 million.
Yeah. Well, they got Otani now, so he's going to draw a lot of a good Japanese player. I mean, that's just lucky for them that it's working out for them right now. They're going to owe so many people on this roster so much money for such a long time. It's like, I mean, honestly, they better make the most of it in these next 5 years because I have a hard time thinking they're going to have any money to pay anyone anything for like the next 20 years.
Yeah,
So,
they've got a window and they're trying to maximize it right now. So that's the show for today. We're running out of time here. Do you have any quick closing remarks, Shane? We got like under the gun here.
yeah, Kurt Schilling pitching on a broken ankle, classic. That's it.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye now.